Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, if I could give you one suggestion that could increase your connection with your audience and the communication, and you don't have to say a single thing, would you be interested in finding out more about it? I think most of us would. And that one thing is body language. If I stand here and say, I went fishing and I caught a fish, everybody would know what my story was. But if I said I went fishing and I got a fish, it was this big, you can see how quickly just that little body language contributed to the intensity of the word I used. Now you might want to say, and it was this big. You might want to make it a little bit more exaggerated, but you don't want to make it too big. So you want to go from just the story to the motion and a little exaggeration. Now, body language begins even before you get to the stage. The moment you get out of your chair, people are watching you. They're watching, are you enthusiastic and excited about your speech? Or are you walking up there with dread? And even the way that you shake hands with the Toastmaster, are you giving it a nice, strong shake, or is it just a little limpy hand? We're going to start with the top and we're going to work down. So when you go up on the stage, you want your feet nicely planted and your shoulders back, and you want to look confident. And then we're going to talk about facial expression. Now, if I do this, what am I expressing? Sadness. If I do this, what am I expressing?
Surprise.
Right. Or if I do this, I would be smiling. I'm sharing that I am excited about something. So just think, just with a couple little gestures of your face, facial expressions, you're telling a story. We're all familiar with that quote that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you can see why. And when you're speaking, you want to make sure you don't cover your mouth, because if you do, no one's going to hear you unless you're telling a story where that specifically is part of the story and you want to show that. Or if you're showing a chart or maybe a PowerPoint, you want to look back and then turn forward and speak so that the audience can hear you. You don't want to talk to the chart. All right, we are going to move to eye contact because eye contact is very important. We want people to know that we're paying attention to what they want to hear from us. Now, for a lot of people, when they first start, it's uncomfortable to do eye contact. So you might want to just look slightly over the person's head so that it looks like you're having eye contact, but you're just glancing in that direction. And you want to slowly move your motions across the room. Gently stay with a little while in one position, the next position, and the next position. So now we're going to move into using your arms. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but if something very strange happens when you come up on the stage, all day long, every day, we have these two things dangling next to our body, and we never think about them, do we? And as soon as you get on the stage, all of a sudden it's, what should I do with these things? You know, they're just, where do I put them? Really weird. I don't know what that's about. But we know with gestures, you can share information just like that. If I go like this, I'm saying A-OK. But one of the things you have to be very careful with, if you speak in another country, is to make sure the body language that you use doesn't mean something different in that country. For instance, A-OK in some countries is a vulgar display. Or the peace sign, man, peace. Again, if you do it like this, especially, it's vulgar in some countries. So be careful with that. Now we know the universal thing, thumbs up, good, thumbs down, bad. So these are just some of the gestures that you can use along with your facial expressions to exemplify your words, make them a little stronger, add a little texture to them. So what are some positions with your arms you might want to avoid. One of them is called the fig leaf. I think you probably understand why it's called that. Another is your hands in your pocket. Now you might think, well, what's the big deal about putting hands in your pocket? That can look like relaxed and cool. But the reason why that's not something you would want to do is because we have what's called the reptilian mind. This is the part of our mind that was developed when we were first on this planet. And that reptilian mind was all about survival. And when if I have my hands in my pockets, the audience on a subconscious level are thinking, are they going to throw something at me? Do they have a what's going on? And of course, the same thing applies to if you put your hands behind your back. Do they have a gun? Are they going to pull that out and get me? So you want to leave your arms in a position where you're slightly open. And of course, you don't want to do this because you're showing that you're afraid. You want to put your arms in a position where it looks like you're comfortable, where it looks like you're open to the audience and you're allowing the audience in. You don't want to cross your hands like this again, unless in the particular story you're telling, you might express somebody doing this, but can you see how this closes me off to the audience? So we want to keep it open and allow the space between your audience and you to be fully engaged with the audience. So we're going to move on to something else that's important. Always make sure you try on your outfit the night before and make sure it's comfortable. I remember a speech that somebody gave, and her skirt was a little short and a little tight. And the whole time she was speaking, and she was doing this, it was very distracting, or playing with your jewelry or even your hair. So just become comfortable when you're up on the stage so you're not doing a lot of fiddling around. And one very helpful thing is to not point at your audience. You can do a gesture sort of like this, but it's considered to be rude if I'm pointing at somebody specifically. And another thing you might do with your body language is if you have a speech that's three parts, you might start and to one side where you share the first part of your speech. Maybe it's an icebreaker, you're sharing your childhood, and very gently walk over to another position, speak about the second aspect, and then finally move to the third place to express once again that particular part of your life. But if you ever do this, you have to make sure the audience sees you the opposite from where you're moving. So you want to, instead of move from your vantage point from the right to the left, you always start from the left and move to the, start with the right and move to the left. So these are some ideas that I would suggest you practice in your giving speeches. Now, obviously, we're not all going to be comfortable doing these things, but that's why we learn and grow and understand different techniques so that eventually we'll be able to incorporate these into our speeches. So I highly recommend, if you're uncomfortable, practice in front of your mirror. And I highly suggest that you put some of your body language into your next speech so we can really see what you have to give us. Madam Toastmaster person, whatever that's called.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for your wonderful speech. And we know you are such a great speaker. And I'm sorry, I don't know why my agenda did not show your name. Sorry for that. And my next item is Improv Master.
No,
Please
you
welcome.
have to ask for questions and answers, Sugata.
Right.
What?
Questions and answers.
Yes. So, Improv Master is Betsy Robinson. She will not come. You will do still continue?
No, part of Marianne's project is questions and answers.
Okay.
So does anybody, so you should ask if anybody has any questions about Marianne's speech. Does anybody have any questions about Marianne's speech? I do.
Thank you.
What would you say is the number one tip that someone can use just to get started? You know, they might be a little intimidated by all this talk about, oh, I got to use some verbal cues and nonverbal communication. What do you think is the most important? Where can somebody start just to ease into this whole process?
I would say start in front of the mirror because most people, when they start out, they're not very comfortable standing in front of a group of people and speaking. They're not going to have strong eye contact. They're not going to feel natural and flowing. So start in front of the mirror, in front of your family members, and just practice some of the skills. I think speeches like this, where we understand the value of using gestures or body language, is also very helpful. Another thing you can do is go online. There are a number of excellent speakers that explain all the body language and the value behind behind using body language, because there is a lot behind just not just do it. There's a reason to do it. I hope that's been helpful.
Yes, I have another question.
Sure, go for it.
So I do notice that you always like to record your presentations. Now, does that help you with your process as far as improving with your body language when you watch it back?
Excellent question, Sharon. Let me just take you back to my very first speech. When the evaluator came up, she said, you looked at the floor a lot and something else that I did that needed to be improved. There we go. And I thought to myself, well, I did not look up. But my dad videotaped it when I got home after a couple days when I could finally take up the courage to watch myself. I found out, in fact, she was correct. I was looking at the ground. And so often, especially as beginner speakers, we haven't got a clue how we're coming across. And when you have it on a video, there's no question about it. And you can actually see the things that you might not have picked out when you were just thinking you were coming across a certain way. So I think that's a valuable tip. Anyone else out there? Yes, Louise.
Just a question. Since we have this day and age of doing virtual speaking on a screen like we are tonight versus in person, if you're in a virtual atmosphere and you have somebody brand new, would you say that they should need to try to stand up to do their speech more
Oh,
than sitting down,
absolutely.
especially with the use of body movements?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the body language comes across so much better when we are standing up. And those of us who have spent many years in Toastmasters in front of an audience, there's so many little intricate things we can do, like the movement in your speech, using those body language. If you're confined in the little box and only your head shows, it's very hard to get those gestures moving in a way that they're very effective. So I would highly recommend people standing up when they're speaking, if at all possible. Anyone else? Yes, Miss Patty.
I have a new question that someone sent in to me, and I thought I should pass this on to you. Can you explain a little more about the primitive brain and how that is still affecting us on an unconscious level?
Thank you very much, Patty, for that question. As I mentioned earlier, the primitive mind was this very primitive. And so again, it was all about survival. And not only that, but on a subconscious level, we are always being affected by that subconscious mind. And once again, it was survival. Well, we're still in a mode of survival. It's just that it's been covered up in a lot of ways, so we're not consciously aware of it. And another thing, and I just happen to have my primitive mind with me, that's what we looked like. And if you notice, the guy is crawling around on the ground, okay? Well, that's how we all started. And though after many, many thousands of years, we're now in a position we're standing up, but understand that we no longer have the ground to protect our solar plexus. This is exposed. And that's why it is so valuable when a speaker is speaking that the audience member can tell that this person is friendly. They don't have anything behind their back. They're not going to throw anything at me. And if they've got a smile on their face, I'm going to think, whoa, what does this person have to share with me? So lots of wonderful aspects in regard to that primitive mind, which again, we are not consciously aware of, but yet that's running the show. I'm sure just in general, in your life, have you ever come across someone who was maybe a little bit of a seedy looking character? You want to get close to them? Versus somebody that comes forth and they're cheerful and friendly, you want to get to know who that person is. So you want to come across as a speaker in the same manner. Any other questions out there? Yes,
I
Betsy.
do. So we are our own worst critics when it comes to watching ourselves and listening to our voices.
Yes.
I know personally I don't like my voice at all, but you know, everybody sees me differently than I see myself. How do you overcome that?
Thank you for that question, Betsy. Good question again. And I would say we are all our own worst enemies. We don't need any from outside. We carry us with us everywhere we go. And I think one of the ways we could look at that is, would you let your best friend talk? How do I want to say this? Would you let somebody talk to your best friend the same way we talk to ourselves? And I think the answer is no. And I think just reminding ourselves that we're up here doing something that only maybe 1% of the population is willing to do. And do we come across perfectly all the time? Do I like my voice? Do I like how I look in that video? The answer is usually no, but we keep coming up and we keep doing this and we keep accomplishing things that most people won't even come up and try. So I believe that just continuing to work with it, and eventually, in one of the other clubs that I'm in, and I just did a start stop a line there. There we had some pictures put up, and we got to decide if we wanted them on there or not, so they didn't just stick them up there. And somebody put up this like horrible picture of me. I look like a laughing hyena. And in the past, that would have just made me cringe. It's like, oh, well, whatever. That's what I look like at that moment. So to just take things a little bit more comfortable of what's the difference, or even giving speeches. How many times have you given a speech and it just wasn't what you had hoped it was going to turn out to be? After a while, you just think, oh, well, I got up there, I did the best I could. Perfect, no, but I had fun with it. Anyone else? Louise, I can't see what number you've got up there.
Yeah, green.
Green.
Greg goes in.
Are there
Greg's
any other
got his hand up.
questions? We got a couple more
Greg
minutes.
has one.
Greg has one.
Greg has it.
I can't see your face, Greg, so I can't tell what you're up to, which is
Yeah.
normal
Oh,
with you.
that's really good because this is Jose from south of the border. You do not want to see what I'm doing. Hey, for the young lady, Betsy, I put earplugs in my ears because I don't like what I sound like either. but I do got the question for you.
Yes.
I had to go to the latrine, so I don't know if you even spoke about this because Mamacita Nature was calling. Okay. Are there any gestures in the US of A that might be inappropriate in other cultures that we should be aware of?
Well, I'm not sure if you're asking the opposite of what I said in my speech. Is that correct? Because this, this A-OK in other countries is vulgar.
Oh yeah.
And peace sign is vulgar in some countries as well. And I'm sure there's some that flip around the other way. And we know there's some in this country that are considered to be vulgar as well.
Yeah, because down here in the South, when you hold up two fingers, that means bring me 2 tacos.
Thank you so much for contributing with questions. And is there anything else anybody would like to know about in regard to this subject? Well, it looks like we're winding down. So remember, your reptilian mind is here and alive and well all the time. So we need to calm him down and make sure that he knows that you're friendly and you've got something to share that's of value, and not throwing rocks or taking the gun out of your pocket to shoot. So Be friendly with Mr. Reptilian. And I just had the thought, if we could visualize our whole audience as reptilians, that would give us something to laugh about as well. So once again, I encourage you to incorporate more body gestures into your speech because it's going to really wow your audience. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you so much.